Hey there, everybody. Got a video here showing you how to upload sermons into your sermon player using the plugin that we use called Series Engine. I'm on the back end of the website just like you would be as you're going to upload sermons, and you're going to see it on the left hand side. It's going to be called Sermons. It might be called Series Engine. It might be called Sermons SE like this is, but nonetheless, if you hover over it, you're going to see Series Engine right here. So I'm going to click into there. And you'll see on this particular site we have, it shows me right here, 30 sermons uploaded already. And what I want to take you through on this particular video is how do you add more sermons to your site, because that's something you're going to have to do every single week. Now, the very first question you need to answer when you're coming in to upload a sermon is the series that the sermon is connected to, is that series already added into Series Engine? So if we come over here and click on Edit Series, you'll see that this particular site has 6 series set up already. And I always include one here called Standalone Sermons, and that simply is sort of a catch-all for all those one-time type sermons. Guest speaker comes in, or maybe Easter, Christmas, whatever it might be, sort of a catch-all category for you. Now what I want to do is just show you how to add a series, how easy that is. So we're going to just simply click Add New. And here you're going to name your series, Sample Sermon Series, what we're just going to go with, something very original. I recommend you always give your series a short description. Tell people what the series is all about. This series is all about meat. As I drop in my bacon ipsum here. This is probably too long of a description, so we're going to shorten that up a bit. Got to have a start date, so let's just say the start date was last week. URL. Now this is super important. You can notice it's kind of in gray, but it says they recommend a 16 by 9. That means a ratio of 16 pixels by 9 pixels. That's at least 1,000 pixels wide. What I always use is a 1920 by 1080 image. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this. Got an image right here that I just kind of pulled over. That is the right size, and then you'll see that it does that. And then the last thing you want to do is assign it to the series type, which almost everybody's only going to have main series right there. The only reason to have more than the main series, and if we go edit series types, that's where this is coming from, is if you wanted to do sorting a little bit differently. For example, if you had a Sunday school that you were recording and you're uploading, well, maybe you would create a Sunday school series type. Or maybe you have an AM and a PM gathering, and you want to keep those series separate. You could do that as well. But for the most part, 99% of the people we're working with are just going to have main series. All right, now that your series is created, we're going to pop back over here to the main Series Engine page, and we're going to add a new sermon. And let me just show you how easy this is to do every week. We're going to hit Add New, and then we have a lot of options in here, but if you just work down it methodically, you're going to find that it's super easy. So you're going to title it right here. You're going to select your speaker. Now, your speaker may be in here, and maybe he's not. So let's just add a new one. You can add them right from here, and I'm just going to add myself, and we'll hit Add New Speaker, and I'm going to pop in right there. The date was this last Sunday. Description. You don't have to put a description in your sermon, but I think it really helps. It helps SEO a little bit because it's more text that search engines can search. So it does not hurt to add a description in here. So we will do that as well. What we do in our church, if you want to make this a little easier, is we take the big idea from the sermon, which our pastor is always fairly clear about up front. Here's what the sermon's all about. We take that and we just sort of put that in there and modify it. You know, something like, well, let me just show you a quick example here from this last week. What we did right here. So, salvation by grace alone is God's work, God's gift, and is God's glory. Watch or listen as Drew preaches a Reformation sermon from Ephesians. So it's as simple as that. And it literally, because I already have his big idea, you know, it takes me 8 seconds to write that. Audio URL, you're going to upload your audio file, drag this over. Let me just say a quick note about audio files. Try to be consistent with your audio file. MP3s are always best. You can see on this site they have kind of a mixture of M4As and MP3s. MP3s always work best, and they should be compressed down to about 90, at least an average of 96 kilobytes per second. If you're not familiar with how to compress audio, that's for another video that we'll have in our knowledge base and our documents. But compressing your audio down is pretty important because it saves on server space. So this sermon right here is 25 minutes long, and it's 16 megabytes, and this is compressed down to about 96 kbps. If this were, say, like 196, or even you want to get crazy up into the 300s, this 16 megabyte file could, fly all the way up into, say, 100 to 150 megabytes, and that just slows everything down. So use compression, and we'll make sure that there's a video about that. If you are doing video, this is where you can embed a code from Vimeo or YouTube or another hosting service if you're using that. Some people use Subsplash. So you would just grab the embed code and drop it in there. Please do not add straight video files to your site. Those are huge and would take up way too much space, so we don't want to do that. Add it to the series. So we're going to add it to the series we just created, our sample sermon series, and it'll by default choose that. You don't have to mess with that. And then you can associate it with some topics. You can see that this website here already has a bunch of topics going. Yours may have more, it may have none. Hard to say, but if you need to add a new one in here, you can do that. Let me just see if I can identify something that's not in this list yet. Let's just do race. I don't see that. So we'll add that. And then scroll back up to the top. You can jump over then to scripture. And what we want to do then is link in the book of the Bible that was preached from. So let's just say we're in Romans 1:1 to Romans 14. And you want to make sure you check this box and attach the scripture reference. Now, every once in a while, let me just show you this sort of like weirdness, is that every once in a while, you're going to preach from, say, chapter 1 to chapter 2. And if that's the case, then what you need to do is you can only deal with one chapter at a time. So you're going to put in all of chapter 1. I don't know how many verses are in chapter 1. Let's just call it 28. And add that. And then you're going to come in and say chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, if that's what it was. So now we have these 3 attached to it, and that's fine to be like that. All right. And then you don't need to do anything for podcast details. This is all automatically done for you. This is like getting fine-grained. And then links and downloads. If you wanted to make a manuscript or a handout available, this is where you would do that. And you would just simply name it, add your file, if you want to feature it, etc. But we won't do that right now. Jump back over here. We're just going to hit add the new message. And let's pop out over to their sermons page. Take a look at how my sample came over. Boom, sample sermon title, last words, sermon description. This is the series description right here. But man, that looks really, really nice for a fake sermon. So one last thing I'll show you here before we hang it up is everything I just added is completely junk. So we want to show you how to delete stuff. Piece of cake. We're simply going to come in here. We can delete the sermon. And if you needed to delete, say, a series, you can come in here under Edit Series, and we can delete the series. You can only delete a series, though, if there's no sermons tied to it. So notice how there's sermons tied to some of these. There's no delete option. So you can only do it if there's no sermons assigned to it. And then the last thing we want to delete is the speaker. And again, same deal. I'm going to delete myself there. All right, so now everything is back to the way it should be. So that is how sermons are managed on sort of a week-by-week basis. If you have any questions about how any of that stuff works, feel free to email us over at help@graceat.work. That's graceat.work, help@graceat.work, and we'd be glad to take care of you.